Greetings from Okinawa, Japan. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Jerry Bosken, and I'm excited to walk you through a few key topics and consulting strategies from modules 5 through 8 in our text that have shown to drive organizational success. In this presentation, we'll cover a range of topics from aligning employees' goals with the company vision, to navigating cross-cultural communication, to handling change in the very complex world of healthcare, and we'll even touch on using financial incentives effectively. Employee engagement and retention are more critical than ever, and understanding the key drivers behind them can make a significant impact on organizational success. We'll explore real-world examples and evidence-based strategies that bridge the gap between HR theory and day-to-day practice. Additionally, we'll discuss the challenges leaders face in today's dynamic work environments and how proactive HR strategies can foster resilience and long-term commitment. As an HR practitioner, I feel confident that this presentation will illustrate where theory meets practical solutions, equipping you with actionable insights to implement in your own workplace. So with no further ado, let's dive in. So in Module 5, Chapter 18, we read about integrating individual assessments, we read about team-based competencies, position requirements, and organizational vision. From this chapter, I specifically wanted to explore the symbiotic relationship between employee goals and organizational vision in HR consulting. So one of the biggest challenges organizations face in the area of performance management and the development of performance plans is making sure their employees' personal goals align with the company's bigger vision. When leaders fail to dedicate the time and effort that this process deserves, inevitably employees don't feel connected to the mission, and in turn this leads to low employee engagement, and issues with retention and operational continuity quickly rise to the surface. As consultants who bring with them executable interventions, we work with HR teams and senior leaders to create strategies with a clear understanding of the tactical implication on the ground. One way this is accomplished is that we advise companies to integrate an employee's career development with the company's overall success. In many companies that I've worked with, I was able to implement a separate learning development plan, we call it LDP for short, simultaneously to the development of the employee's annual performance plan. When employees feel like they are growing personally and professionally while contributing to a larger mission, they become more engaged, more motivated, more productive. Ultimately, at the end of the day, employers want employees to wake up each morning and feel good about going to work. So from a biblical perspective, to me, this connects well with Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for human masters. When employees understand how their work serves a greater purpose, they're more likely to stay committed and invested in the organization. So to drive home some of the points on the previous slide, we turn to the literature. And there's literally volumes of research on this topic. In a 2018 study conducted by Dr. Marilyn Gagne, she found that turning strategy into action requires employees to feel personally connected to company goals. If employees don't see that clear line between their day-to-day work and the company's larger mission, they become disengaged and productivity suffers. Dr. Gagne's research highlights that companies who actively communicate their vision and make employees feel like stakeholders see a much higher engagement, performance, and innovation. However, for this to be achieved effectively, goals and objectives must clearly be communicated and integrated at every level, ensuring alignment from leadership down to each individual employee. When I'm explaining this to my employees, I talk about quite frequently cascading goals and objectives, which basically means from the CEO all the way down to the individual employees. Those goals and objectives should dovetail and cascade down nicely to the individual employee. Now, Newman and Ford looked at leadership strategies in virtual workplaces, super relevant these days, and how alignment works when teams aren't physically together. Their research showed that clear goal setting and trust building are crucial for keeping remote employees engaged, and that digital tools play a major role in facilitating this type of collaboration. Franco Santos and Oatley explored how performance management, here's the flip side, when not done right, can actually have unintended negative consequences. They found that overly rigid performance metrics can make employees feel micromanaged, reducing creativity and motivation, and sometimes leading to counterproductive behaviors just to hit the numbers. Companies that focus solely on performance metrics without considering employee well-being often see a rise in burnout, silent quitting, and turnover. So in Module 6, Chapter 22, we read about cross-cultural issues in international organizational consultation. From this chapter, I chose to take a look at the impact of nonverbal communication on cross-cultural consulting success. Have you ever experienced a moment where someone's body language completely alters your understanding of what they're saying? Having spent over 35 years working abroad, primarily in Asia, I've come to realize that culturally influenced nonverbal cues are just as crucial as the spoken word, if not more so in many cases. Well, in cross-cultural consulting, nonverbal communication is pivotal in a successful intervention. For example, a thumbs up might mean great job in one country, but in another, it comes off as quite offensive. Eye contact in some cultures shows confidence, while in others, it can feel very aggressive. Even something simple as personal space varies from country to country. What might be considered a comfortable distance in one culture can feel quite intrusive or distant in another. The book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 1 reminds us, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Communication isn't just about words. It's about tone, it's about gestures, it's about how we approach one another with respect and understanding. So the focus of my dissertation is actually on cultural intelligence. So I found the research on this topic especially quite compelling. To start off with Dr. Bao, he's a physician by training, and his colleagues found that communication training often doesn't include enough focus on nonverbal cues. So that's a big gap consultants need to fill. They argue that even professionals with strong verbal skills can still misinterpret body language, leading to misunderstandings, especially in high-stake business settings. This resonates with me. I was the first chief human resource officer for Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi during the startup. And during this three-year startup, we were bringing physicians over from the physician who have never been to the Middle East. So we had to design a training program specific to these types of nonverbal communications. The study conducted by Dr. Cheka in 2020, she looked at strategies businesses use to navigate cross-cultural communication in global markets. The study highlights that businesses that invest in cultural training for employees tend to have stronger international partnerships and fewer conflicts, showing that nonverbal competency is just as important as language proficiency. And then Chudnovskaya and Millett applied Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory to analyze how intercultural experiences shape communication. Their findings suggest that recognizing cultural differences in expectations of power, of hierarchy, and directness is critical for consultants working in diverse environments to help them adapt help them adapt their approaches accordingly. Collectively, I believe these studies emphasize that cultural intelligence is really the foundation of effective cross-cultural communication. Whether it's through understanding nonverbal cues, investing in cultural training, or applying even theoretical frameworks like Hofstede's dimensions, the ability to adapt and navigate diverse environments is crucial for consultants and business professionals alike. As globalization continues to shape our workplaces, developing cultural intelligence, it's no longer optional. It's essential for avoiding misunderstandings, for building trust, for fostering successful international collaborations. I found it quite valuable in my time being overseas for as long as I have been. In Module 7, Chapter 23, we read about consulting with healthcare organizations. From this chapter, I wanted to take a look at the impact of organizational culture on change management in healthcare. From my personal experience working in this space, healthcare organizations are extremely complex and very territorial. And when major changes occur through mergers, startups, policy shifts, or even leadership transitions, culture can drive success or create resistance. Our textbook talks about leadership playing a critical role in whether these changes succeed or they fail. If communication lacks clarity and transparency, employees often react with fear and resistance. Power struggles, rigid hierarchies, long-standing traditions can further complicate transitions, even when changes are meant to improve efficiency. Chapter 23 goes on, and they stress that consultants must balance strategy with empathy, ensuring that employees feel heard and engaged. High-stress environments and crisis-driven cultures often prioritize quick fixes over long-term solutions, making it even more essential to actively engage the key stakeholders and foster these collaborative solutions. Ultimately, successful change management in healthcare is about people, not just policies, and consultants must work to bridge the gap between leadership and employees. From a biblical perspective, the book of James, chapter 1, verse 5, offers some wisdom here. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Now, to me, this personally, this says that wise leadership fosters a culture of resilience and adaptability. Okay, let's take a look at some of the research in this area. Dr. Melina Veneri's work on performance in healthcare has focused largely on how and when the competencies of top management can influence organizational performance. In a 2019 study, Dr. Veneri and her colleagues found that top management competencies directly impact healthcare performance, meaning strong leadership makes all the difference. And this isn't a new concept. This actually transcends the healthcare industry. Their study showed that organizations with transparent communication and well-defined goals had better patient outcomes and lower employee burnout, reinforcing the idea that clarity and consistency are key. Castiglione and Lavoie Tremblay in 2021 studied a large-scale change in hospitals and what factors led to success. They found in that study that organizations that prioritize staff involvement in the change process, rather than just issuing top-down directives, are much more successful in achieving lasting transformation because employees feel valued and invested in the outcome. And finally, looking back at the COVID pandemic, Bianco Mathis and Burrell in 2023 explored how the pandemic forced a massive cultural transformation in various healthcare settings. Their research revealed that those organizations with adaptive and resilient cultures managed crisis situations far more effectively than those resistant to change, proving that agility is a competitive advantage in the healthcare industry. So in Module 8, Chapter 26, one of my absolute favorite chapters in the text, we read about interventions that work and some that don't. And from this chapter, I chose to look at the impact of financial incentives on employee performance and retention. This one gets a lot of attention because when you get right down to it, money is a key motivator, but it's not the only motivator. Many companies falsely assume, that simply paying employees more will increase performance and retention. But in reality, financial incentives must be structured carefully to have the desired positive effect. From an HR practitioner's perspective, the starting point for any incentive initiative, monetary or non-monetary, is carefully first analyzing the leadership component. There's an old saying that says employees may come for the money, but they stay or leave because of leadership. Effective incentives such as performance-based bonuses, profit sharing, and even retention bonuses can create a sense of ownership, motivate employees, and reduce turnover. On the other hand, if these incentives are not carefully designed, such as flat salary increases, inflexible reward systems, or an overly complex compensation structure, these often fail to improve performance and can even lead to employee dissatisfaction. And just to be clear, what I mean by flat salary increase refers to everyone getting the same dollar amount or percentage amount regardless of their respective contributions. So as consultants, I believe we need to help organizations develop financial incentive programs that are fair, that are transparent, and they're aligned with the business goals while also considering leadership and individual employee motivations and contributions. Here I believe there's a very, very simple verse in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 7, that states, "The worker deserves his wages." Now, why this verse may appear to be overly simplistic, this reminds us that fair and ethical compensation is essential, but money alone is not enough to foster these long-term commitments that we all strive for as employers. That being said, employees are truly engaged when they feel valued beyond their paycheck. So now let's take a look at what research has contributed to this area. In his 2019 study, it was actually a literature review, Dr. D. Singh critically analyzed various studies to identify key factors influencing employee retention, particularly in the dynamic environments of multinational organizations. His research emphasized that retention extends beyond salary. It hinges on career development opportunities, work-life balance, and a sense of purpose in the workplace. While competitive pay remains essential, we all have to put food on the table. Singh's findings suggest that companies must also invest in employee growth and well-being to sustain the level of engagement and long-term employment that employers are looking for. In 2021, Dr. Lisa Ann Slatton and her colleagues examined how nonprofit organizations, despite their tight budgets, can implement effective employee retention models. Their research found that while mission-driven work can be a powerful motivator, it is only effective if employees feel valued and supported by leadership. They concluded that employees are more likely to remain in organizations where they perceive their work as meaningful and impactful. Kolakowski and Sedlak in 2020 explored a very, very fundamental question, a great question. Can financial incentives buy work engagement? Spoiler alert again, money alone isn't enough. Well, their research demonstrated pretty clearly that while financial rewards can boost short-term motivation, it's the long-term engagement that's driven more by job autonomy, recognition, and sense of purpose. Organizations that overlook these factors often struggle with employee retention, even when offering competitive salaries. So if we look at these collectively, together, we see these studies highlight that while financial incentives play an important role in retention, long-term employee engagement depends on deeper factors: career growth, leadership support, job autonomy, a sense of purpose. At the end of the day, recognition, just saying a job well done. Organizations that prioritize these elements, regardless of budget constraints, are more likely to build a committed and motivated workforce. So we've condensed a lot of material into 9 short slides. What's the biggest takeaway? Whether we're talking about employee alignment, employee engagement, cross-cultural communication, changes in healthcare, or financial incentive, effective consulting comes down simply to understanding people. As consultants, we must help organizations create executable strategies that align individual goals with the company's vision, that foster strong, culturally aware communication, guide organizations through change while maintaining a positive culture, develop financial incentive structures that truly motivate employees. At the heart of it all is effective leadership, ethical business practices, and a commitment to long-term success rather than short-term fixes. So as we wrap this up, I'm reminded of Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. This verse to me underscores the importance of wisdom, integrity, and ethical decision-making, principles that should guide us in all aspects of our work, especially in consulting and leadership. Success isn't just about strategies and framework. It's about leading with purpose, making decisions rooted in values, and staying committed to meaningful impact. I hope this presentation has provided valuable insights that you can take forward in your work. I want to thank you for your time, your engagement, and the opportunity to share these ideas with you. May you all continue to lead with wisdom, purpose, and the heart for transformation.